Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you don't like Rings of Power, you're just a misogynist, a racist, and you're guilty of review bombing. Let's get into this story. We got this covered. Rings of Power is already getting review bombed for identity politics. Rings of Power has now premiered on Amazon Prime with the first 2 episodes giving us an excellent indication as to what this story will be about and the broad direction it's going. We'll reserve our full judgment until after the first season is wrapped. But so far, we agree with the critics that this is a sumptuous and elegant show. Agreed, it looks fantastic. That feels broadly in line with Tolkien's original stories and themes. Now, I'm going to stop you there, David. I don't think you know what you're talking about because this is not broadly in line with Tolkien's original stories and themes. What this does is take several plot points from the Second Age. It lifts them out of the Second Age. It takes the whole Second Age and compresses it down in time. And it rearranges the characters and rearranges who they interact with, and it changes their character, it changes their personality, and instead of laying out, as Tolkien did, basically a story with major plot points, and following that plot point, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay decided to put up their own different plot points, and then they bounce around all over the place, doing whatever they want, and then eventually getting to the end, I presume. I don't think that I can call that a show that feels broadly in line with Tolkien's original stories and themes, and is certainly not respecting the source material, not respecting the canon, the lore, any of that. These introductions of characters that don't match up with the descriptions we have, that's not respecting the canon. That's not respecting the lore. And I don't care that you think that it's problematic for something like that. Simply put, that, if this is Celtic mythology and that's essentially what it is, then, well, the colors of people be damned. There were not a lot of people of color in Celtic mythology. That doesn't mean that Celtic mythology is problematic. There wasn't a lot of people of color in medieval Europe. It doesn't mean medieval Europe was had poor racial optics. There weren't a lot of Europeans in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, during the medieval times. Does that mean the racial optics of sub-Saharan Africa were problematic during medieval times? No, it just means history is history, and sometimes that's not anything to do with racism, religion, religious extremism, misogyny, any of those things. All right, moving on. Now, naturally, individual opinions vary, but for some, any positive aspects the show have are being overridden by its featuring prominent female characters and more diverse casting than we might expect from a story set in Middle-earth. I already covered the diverse casting, but let's focus on this prominent female characters. Okay, so basically what this person here is doing, David James, is arguing that people don't like this show because it's got prominent female characters, i.e. these people are misogynist, and it's got a diverse cast, i.e. people are being racist because they don't like people of color. As such, legions of... And then David James just calls it out. He doesn't even hide it anymore. As such, legions of racist and sexist nerds have swarmed onto major review sites to rate the show as low as they possibly can. Oh, so everybody is giving this a low rating. Ah, okay. On Metacritic, it's sitting at a 3.3 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 45%, which is now about a 37%. 36%. And on IMDb, it has a relatively healthier 7.0, which is not correct anymore, though 21% of those 6,000 votes have rated the show, have given it a 1 star. Let's jump over to IMDb. Now, here on IMDb, we do see that 26% and change have given it a 1 star, but we also see that 33% have given it a 10 star. Now, arguably, after we've seen all of the critics' evaluations of this show, I don't believe it to be a 10 star. And it does bring up an interesting question. When Time says that this is a show filled with beautiful images but tired archetypes, is that because the individual here, Judy Berman, is a misogynist or a racist? Please let me know, David. When Giant Freaking Robot says that the show is potentially great but it's not quite there yet, is that misogyny or racism? Please do educate me. When the BBC says that the show is dazzling but slow, is that the misogyny or the racism? I'm not quite sure. Please, David, please educate all of us. When Entertainment Weekly says that The Rings of Power is Amazon's prequel is kind of a catastrophe, is that the racism or the misogyny? Is it both? Again, I'm just wanting to know and understand. Why don't you please bless us with your divine knowledge? When the Daily Mail says it is mesmerizing awfulness, is that the misogyny or the racism? Now let's dive into the further depths of these IMDb review ratings again. Now, if we looked at this, we actually see it has more 10-star reviews. So is that not also review bombing? But there's no complaints about all the high reviews. And I'm assuming that these people are, I mean, if I have to assume that all the 1-star reviews are because these people hate women and hate people of color, then maybe all these 10 stars are because these people only like women and only like people of color. I don't know. Can we draw that? Can we infer that? But what I do find interesting here is that the weighted average of this is a 6.5, but the actual average, the actual mean is a 6.1. So they don't completely match up. And then if we look at the demographic breakdown, it's mostly 6s as a couple of 7s. So the show doesn't really have high ratings. Now, I mean, when I wanted to compare this to another, let's compare this to, for example, House of the Dragon, which has very good ratings, and it has a weighted average of 8.9. But let's look at the arithmetic mean. The average is 8.8, meaning they're basically the same. And then if we actually look at the demographic breakdowns, it's all high 8s to 9s. So again, all of these things match up. There's not as much spread on these. And, you know, I guess what's interesting is that if I look at the people who are in this show, and we see that we have female characters, lots of female characters, people of color, I guess I should assume that we won't see any of those people in House of the Dragon. So am I going to see any female character? Shouldn't be any female characters in House of the Dragon then, because as we know, people don't like it because they're misogynists or racist. So these same people shouldn't like House of the Dragon because they're misogynist and racist. But that's a problem then, because we already see that we have lots of prominent female characters. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, Mysaria, young Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. We also have Queen Alicent Hightower, and we have the adult version of Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. Wow, we have a lot of female characters. But if these same people who, and trust me, it is the same people, you can go onto YouTube and you can see the people who don't like Rings of Power talking about it, and then you can see them give reviews of House of the Dragons, and they absolutely are enjoying House of the Dragon. In fact, they're surprised at how much they are enjoying it. Most of these people also enjoyed Game of Thrones. Speaking of Game of Thrones, let's check into Game of Thrones, which had a 9.2 out of 10. And let's look a little more into that rating. Now, that was a 9.2 weighted average and a 9.0 on the arithmetic mean, the actual average. But surely this show doesn't have a bunch of women or any people of color in it, because then these people would not have liked the show, because that is the argument that David is making. Oh, but here we have a problem. Daenerys Targaryen, Cersei Lannister, Sansa Stark, Arya Stark. Yes, this is problematic. Brienne of Tarth, Missandei. Oh, wow, look. So we've got tons of strong female characters and people of color. Interesting, very interesting. That the same people that like Game of Thrones that are giving it a 9.2 out of 10, or if you look on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it an 85% audience score. And these same people who seem to enjoy House of the Dragon, giving it an 8.9 out of 10, who then also gave it an 85% audience score, somehow don't like The Rings of Power, giving it just a 36% audience score and just a 6.5 audience score on IMDb. So yeah, I don't really find that this argument holds any water. But let's go back to the article and dive into this a little more. Reviews dismiss Galadriel as a Karen and a Mary Sue, taking issue with her being depicted as a skilled warrior willing to defy the wishes of her king. That's because that's not how she was written by Tolkien. Others claim the show takes its time with extra long camera shots for all the minorities. I don't know who he's saying. Who is saying that? Like, I've never heard that argument from anybody. With many arguing that the more diverse cast ruins Tolkien's tributes to... No, nobody's saying that. Nobody is saying that. They're simply saying that these people don't exist in the canon and in the lore. And they want to understand why you're including them. And nobody has ever made a case for why they've included them. The only thing they've done is misrepresent Tolkien's words and abuse the canon and abuse the lore and then call people misogynist or racist if you don't agree with them. And let's get back to this Karen and Mary Sue thing. Now the Karen and Mary Sue thing, it came from Grace Randolph. So let's just listen in.
As for characters that I didn't like, well, there's really only one character, actually. I think that the lack of action is one of the things that hurts the elves, because the elves would thrive during the action sequences in the movies. Morfydd Clark was so happy to get the big role of Galadriel. In fact, she said she fainted when she found out. So I feel bad that I have to report that she is the worst casting choice of the show and drags the entire thing down. She makes Galadriel both an elven Mary Sue and an elven Karen who would like to speak to the manager. I can't believe it. I can't believe she's both of those horrible things.
Okay, now, David, please explain to me whether Grace Randolph is a misogynist or a racist. Here's a woman who is a leftist media reviewer and critic, and she is saying that she doesn't like the character of Galadriel. So again, is that because she hates women, but she is a woman? Please let me know. I'm just looking to understand all of this because, again, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, one comment accuses the show of forcing identity politics down the viewer's throat, but also says, I just wish we could enjoy entertainment media without all this nonsense. Yeah, man, I 100% agree. That is absolutely true. That's all we're asking for. Here's the big picture. These people who do not like the Rings of Power, who did enjoy and are enjoying House of the Dragon, who did enjoy Game of Thrones, they're all the same people. So they're not misogynist, they're not racist. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't a portion of people out there who are misogynist and racist. Sure, there's always going to be some group of people, but the majority of people who enjoy Game of Thrones, who are enjoying House of the Dragon, and are not enjoying Rings of Power, the same group of people, they're not misogynist, they're not racist. They simply are fans of Tolkien, they are fans of the lore and the canon, they are fans of what he has written, and they don't like that to be abused. At the end of the day, the showrunners don't respect the source material, they don't respect the author's intent, and as a result, they get mad when we don't respect the show and we don't give it a high rating. And yet they have done nothing but disparage and dismiss and name call the fans. And then they are surprised when those same fans don't show up to watch the show, or when they do show up to watch the show and they've been telling you the whole time what the show needs to do to be successful and for them to enjoy it. When that's not done, they give the show a low ranking. And you're surprised about that, and you shouldn't be surprised about that at all. Again, I will reiterate, these people are not misogynist, they're not racist. They simply know the lore, they know Tolkien, and they have respect, and they demand respect for these things. And your lack of respect means that, well, to use Overlord DVD's phrase, without respect, we must reject. That's where we're at. In the meantime, if you want to continue to smash the narrative, then smash the like, subscribe, and share buttons, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.